I'm going to be attempting to beat Pokemon White 2 HARDCORE Nuzlocke using only fighting type Pokemon. To make this run even more difficult, I'm going to ban all use of legendaries that are fighting type. If at any point in this video you do enjoy, think about dropping a like or even subscribing for future videos. Without further ado, let's get into it. I begin my journey by picking Tepig and naming him Pumbaa. And then on the way to the next town, I then find an old man jumping off of a cliff. I then caught my second team member Riolu and named him Danny. I then saved a random herdier from my Team Plasma member on the farm. It was now time to take on Charon, the first gym leader. Normally this would be really easy, but I do not have fighting type moves, which makes it a bit harder. But he starts with the Patch Rat, which is taken out by 2 embers, one being a critical hit. Charon then sends in his Lillipup next, to which sets up 2 workups, which could have been a very bad situation, but I got lucky with one of my embers and burned him, making it easy to knock him out and win the battle. And before taking on the second gym leader Roxy, I evolved my Tepig into his second evolution, Pig Knight. It was now time to face the second gym leader Roxy, who leads with a coughing, and if it was higher leveled, it would have been scary, but since it didn't have self-destruct, it was easy and got taken out by a couple flame wheels. Roxy then sends in her Whirlipede next, which is also then taken out by 1 critical hit flame wheel from my Pig Knight. I then take a short break on my journey to film the next Hollywood blockbuster, Violu Kid. After fulfilling my dream of becoming an A-list celebrity, I then take a short trip out to the beautiful city of Castelia. After getting lost in the sewers for about an hour, I then found my third team member, Timber, and named him Hercules. I then headed north of Castelia City into the desert to catch Stitch the Scraggy. After getting my team up to the right level, it was then time to take on the third gym leader Berg. He leads with his Swadloon, which is then taken out by 1 Flame Charge from Pumbaa. Next up is Berg's Dwebble, which I then have to switch out Pumbaa, being scared of the rock type move, so I bring Hercules in, who then takes it out after using a couple wake up slaps. Berg is now down to his final Pokemon Leavanny, which realistically isn't much of a threat, so I bring Pumbaa back in to take it out with 1 single Flame Wheel, and as a result knocks it out and we win the battle against Berg. Not long after the battle against Berg, my Timber then evolves into a Girder, and I then move on and fight a couple of trained cap. It is now time to take on the 4th gym leader Alessa, who leads with her Emolga, but after predicting one of her Volt switches is then taken out by one of my rock type moves. Her Zeb Striker is then taken out next by a Brick Break from Stitch. Her last Pokemon Flaffy is then taken out also by a Brick Break from Stitch after the Moxie boost, winning me the battle. After the battle, Danny evolves into a Lucario just in time for the 5th gym leader, where he won't be used as he's weak to ground. As you probably could have guessed now, it was now time to take on the 5th gym leader Clay, who leads with the Crocorock, but I take it out swiftly with 1 wake up slap and a chip away from Hercules. Up next was Clay's Sandslash, which was taken out in the same manner as Crocorock, as he goes down to a wake up slap and a critical hit chip. Up next was Clay's final and last Pokemon, Excadrill, who proves too much of a task for Hercules to defeat, so surprise surprise, I actually have to use Danny, to which he knocks him out with a Force Palm, winning me the battle. After winning a Pokemon tournament in Drifale, and then getting tossed off of a boat by Team Plasma, my Scraggy then evolves into his final evolution, Scrafty, and Pig Knight finally evolves into his final form, Emboar. Up next was the gym battle I was dreading the most, the battle against Skylar. She leads off with a Swoobat, which is taken down to the power of a Quick Claw and knocked out with a Crunch. Skylar then sends in her ace Pokemon Swanna next, which I then send in Danny, and after various turns of stalling with Roost, she finally goes down to a Duck Pulse. Skylar is then down to her final Pokemon Skarmory, so I then have to switch out Danny for Pumbaa, and Pumbaa gets brought down to 10 health before taking it out with a Flamethrower and winning me the 6th gym battle without losing a Pokemon. After beating Skylar, I then take a first class private jet out to the middle of fucking nowhere. Up in the barren wastelands to the northeast of Unova, I catch myself a Mienfoo and name it Mulan. On my way to one of the next towns, I then run into some mutant steel dog that I kill because it's obviously not useful to me. Not too long after that, I then ran into another grassy mutant dog. I don't know where these are coming from or why they're here, but I just killed it off. With the mutant dogs out of the way, I then take on the 7th gym leader, Drayden, who starts with his Druddigon, which is then taken out by arm thrust from Pumbaa. Drayden then sends in his Flygon next, which forces me to switch Pumbaa out for Stitch. But after hitting one high jump kick, Stitch is then forced to switch out for Hercules, who then takes Drayden's Flygon out with one more Hammer Arm. Drayden is now down to his ace Pokemon Haxorus, who, because of the damage dealt to Hercules, I then have to switch him out for Danny. But then Danny, after using multiple Dark Pulses, knocks out his Haxorus, winning me the battle and getting my 7th. Then after leaving the 7th gym leader, I then witnessed Team Plasma shooting their laser cannon, icing everything in the city. And then I get given the DNA splicers and then get them robbed from me straight away. But instead of worrying about getting them back, I then leave and evolve Mienfoo into a Mienshao. Obviously, in the mind of a teenager, Team Plasma is not a problem at the moment, so I go on taking the final gym leader, Marlin, who starts with a Caracosta, which I knock out with a couple Drain Punches. Next up was Marlin's Wailord, and it got taken out as I just bounced whenever he bounced, dodging his ability until he died. Marlin was now down to his ace Pokemon Jellicent, who I have to then switch out using U-turn. Stitch then comes in and gets burned, but luckily enough I hit a critical hit crunch to knock it out. Next I then ran into another mutant dog, so I then just killed him and walked away. Next I then beat Zinzalin and one of his grunts in a double battle on the Plasma Frigate. I then gave Colrus an absolute whooping further into the Plasma. I then went to the Great Chasm and found Getsus and his White Kyurem. After giving Getsus' White Kyurem a beatdown, he then challenges me to a battle. He leads off with his Cofagrigus, which is then taken out by 2 crunches from Scrafty. Getsus' next Pokemon, Seismitoad, is then taken out by a couple Drain Punches from Mulan. His Electros suffers the same fate and dies to Drain Punches, and his Drapion dies to a U-turn after Drain Punches. His Hydreigon is then taken out by a critical hit Aura Sphere from Danny, and his Toxicroak is taken out by a bounce by Mulan, beating Getsus and putting him in the mud for the 2nd time. After hours of searching and the rustling grass for a sock, I finally found one on Route 23 and called him Goofy. I then finally made my way to Victory Road and then encountered myself a throw further up on the cliffside area of Victory Road and called him Baloo. Before leaving Victory Road, I ran into Hugh for one last battle. I didn't show him much in this as he wasn't much of a rival and he didn't put much of a threat, so I thought I'd put one battle in and I chose the last one. Hugh's Unfezant is taken out by 2 Aura Spheres and his Buffalon is taken out by 1 high jump kick. Emball then takes out Simisage with a flamethrower. Samurai was taken out with a Brick Break by Goofy, which ends the battle with Hugh for the final time. It was now finally time to take on the final challenge that awaits me, the Elite Four. I start by facing off against Grimsley, as should be the easiest one to beat. He starts with the Lipard, and I knock it out with a Brick Break from Goofy. His Bishop is brought in next, which is then taken out in a literal instant by a Brick Break as it's quadra effective against him. Grimsley then brings in his Crocodile next, to which I do some damage with Brick Break from Goofy, but then I have to switch out because his health is low. So I bring in Balloon next, who then kills the Crocodile with 1 more Brick Break. Grimsley then brings in his final Pokemon, Scrafty, to which I do some damage again with Baloo, but then he's already low on health, so I have to switch out into Pumbaa. Pumbaa then knocks out Scrafty's remaining health with a Flamethrower. The Elite Four member that I decide to take on next is Chantal. She starts by using her Cofagrigus, which I then knock out pretty swiftly with Danny after using 2 Dark Pulses. Chantal then sends in her Chandelier next, to which I then answer with Stitch myself, predicting a Psychic, but he ends up using a Fire Blast, which I luckily dodge, and then knock it out with a Dark Gem boosted Crunch. She then sends in her Golok next, but because of the Moxie boost, it is taken out by 1 single Crunch. Chantal's final Pokemon, Drifloon, is then brought in next, But I then have to switch out Stitch as he can't outspeed and is most likely to die, so I bring Danny in to knock it out with a couple Dark Pulses, winning me my battle against the second Elite Four member. The third Elite Four member that I decide to take on is Caitlyn, which could be seen as quite a hard matchup if I don't play it well. She starts by leading with her Mushana, which I lead with Danny, and which gets taken out after 2 Dark Pulses. Caitlyn's second Pokemon is Reuniclus, so I have to switch Danny out, so I go into Mulan to use a U-turn, so I can predict the Psychic, so I go into Scrafty to negate that, and then knock out with one more Crunch. Chantal's third Pokemon that she brings in is Sigilif. Stitch is able to survive one Air Cutter, and then knocks it out with a Crunch. Caitlyn then sends in her final Pokemon Gothitelle, which is dealt with pretty easily by Stitch because of his attack boost from the Moxie ability, so he knocks it out with one Crunch, carrying the battle, making this one so much easier than it could have been. The last Elite Four member left is my fighting type rival Marshall. He leads with his throw, which I take out after 2 acrobatics from Mulan. Marshall's Mienshao is then taken out next by an acrobatics as well. Marshall's ace Pokemon Conkeldurr is then luckily taken out by a critical hit acrobatics from Mulan. Marshall then brings in his last Pokemon Sock, which is then damaged by Mulan before I bring it in my own Sork, which gets taken down to 13 health before killing Sork off with a Brick Break. It was now time to battle the final challenge in my way for becoming the champion of Unova. It's time to fight Iris. She leads with the Hydreigon, which I knock out with Mulan from 2 Drain Punches. Iris then sends in her Druddigon next, to which I answer with Danny, who knocks it out after a couple Aura Spheres. Iris then sends in her Aggron next, which suffers a crippling fate as it is one-shot by a quad effective Aura Sphere from Danny. Iris then brings in her Haxorus next, to which I answer with Stitch, who lands 2 high jump kicks in a row, one being a critical hit and knocking the Haxorus out. Iris then brings in her Archeops next as her second last Pokemon, so I have to switch Stitch out into Baloo, thinking he can live a hit, but he gets one shot by an Acrobatics, leading me to have to now go into Danny. I then let Danny go down after hitting 1 Aura Sphere, and then to my surprise, somehow Goofy lives 1 Acrobatics and is able to knock out Archeops. That could have avoided so many deaths. Iris's final Pokemon is Lapras, so I then have to let Goofy go down so I can get one final switch in to Stitch, not before Goofy does a lot of damage. Stitch then comes in and hits a risky high jump kick, winning me the battle and completing the challenge. And there you have it, that is how I beat Pokemon White 2 using only fighting type Pokemon. I hope you did enjoy this video, and if you did, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe down below.